Everybody, it's Jeffrey Hart here, and I wanted to take a look at creative use of the racks feature in Ableton Live, and building a cool little instrument rack using the live devices, all the native stuff, none of those expensive VSTs, especially none of those stolen ones, and none of the Ableton Suite ones. So even though I have those, we're just gonna pretend like we don't see those. Okay, so what I want you to do is go and load up a simpler, and for some reason I don't know what I did. This is not my normal library, but anyway, just load up a new simpler and put some sort of waveform in there. That's all. I found these. You just drag that in, and you should be able to play that and have it sound amazing. I think in the default library, if you go here in a simpler under like init or something, you should be able to find the saw, sine, and triangle, like essentially the basic ones. I don't know how those got moved. Anyway, that's not the point at all. Okay, so let's look at our simpler first. And as I hold down this note, it's not looping. So I'm gonna click loop, and now it feels more like we've got a synthesizer. Boom, delicious. Now we're gonna rack that up. By the way, I have no idea what I'm gonna build here. I'm just kind of doing something. Yeah, okay, let's grab the sine wave, see what happens when we drag it in there. Oh, snap, would you look at that? It created a simpler. Now these are settings that I have created. Seems to be working fine, so let's just leave that. Is that minus 24? Let's make that like minus 12. The transpose will let you know. Actually, well, yeah, because I want this to be an octave lower. Sounds like it's an octave lower. So now we've got the on top and on the bottom. Alright, and I want chords to happen on the top and this bass note to be by itself. So I'm going to go to the chord plugin with Ableton. I'm going to double click that. That just puts it onto the track, and then I'm going to drag it onto the saw. Now you could drag it from up here to down there, but sometimes I just like to double click and bring it down onto the track so I have less dragging. That happens because everybody knows dragging is so lame. Okay, let's make some chords here. So we're going to go up a third. Beautiful, and then up a fifth, so it's 4 and 7. Great. Now those are all major chords, and that's not what we want. We want like an actual C major. We want the chords to be diatonic, which means for them to stay in key, which to you just means they need to sound good. And so I'm going to drag that, the C major scale. And now as I go up, you can hear they all sound good. Whereas those, I mean, okay, let's not say it sounds bad, but it's not the sound that we want, so just deal with it. Okay, so if you don't have a C major scale preset in under scales, just go ahead and pause it, pause this video and copy the settings here. You just want to make sure none of these orange dots are on the very dark black dots, which are the black keys on the piano. That's what they represent. Cool, so now we can hear that we've got this on the top and this on the bottom. So we're getting somewhere, and now let's go and square wave on top. Faux show. Minus 24 is not what I want. Let's go up 12. Maybe even up 24. That's pretty cool. And now we're going to mess with some settings. Turn on the LFO. And we're going to send LFO. Great. So this determines how fast this knob is getting wiggled, depending on how much you turn it up there. And if you want to hear that wiggle more, turn up more resonance. And we can even hear it more. this knob determines where the wiggle starts from. So it's nice and low. We're going to do something like... Great. So now we have our basic sound where we've got a lead happening in the top, we've got chords in the middle, we've got some fat bass on the bottom. You know what? And we should name these. So these are going to be chords, but we'll name them saw chords. And then this is our bass, and this is going to be our, was that a square? Square lead. Those are just, so we can keep track. Alright, so let's make these chords not sound so lame. And we're going to do that. First thing that came to mind was chorus. And so again, I double click to send it on the track, and then I just drag it over into that rack because I don't want this chorus to affect all the instruments, but just the one saw chords rack. So you can hear that's softened it up quite a bit. Double click that. Great, so I just want it to be there but not be too crazy. We're going to put a filter on. That's just going to give it some movement over time. Okay, so this works much like the Simpler's filter. In our LFO is going to change where this is, depending on how much you send to it. And how fast it changes is controlled by this. And we can, snap that to the metronome, or we can keep it kind of like a free running clock. And so we're going to do the free thing because we've already got a synced one. Now, the envelope controls this frequency based on like how, let's see, what does it actually say? Controls the extent to which the envelope affects the filter frequency. So as soon as you play a note, essentially this envelope is going to occur. So why don't we take this off? Okay, so the way you want to think about this is if this is in the middle and this is all the way up, as soon as you play a note, it's going to go wow. And depending on where these are set, is going to affect. How exciting. Alright, so the envelope is going to affect what happens to, as soon as you play a note, like what happens to the filter. And so we're going to just have it open up just a little bit. Just whenever you play a note, just to give it some definition. And now the square lead is really getting to me. We're going to put a ping pong on that. And a delay, like delays and reverbs, will soften your sound. It's too much feedback. We're even going to put a reverb on there too, just to push it farther back in the mix. Double click drag, and we're going to put it before. Use the mid setting. And I think we're going to filter this down a little. For some reason I want that buried in there instead of on top. I don't know why. So it just kind of sounds like one sound, maybe. Alright, let's see what happens when we bring this up. I don't know, because I'm not really liking this bass sound very much. It's just too dry. So you know what? Let's distort the bass sound. And doing that is going to bring out some of those harmonics. And once you bring out the harmonics, it just makes that sine wave sound a little sexier. these guys out of here. So it's going to, you know, the distortion excites the harmonic overtone series. Maybe that sounds right to me. I can't really remember. And that's why we can hear, you know, it's going to bring out that high end. Let's see what a redux sounds like instead. Really get disgusting. Oops, sorry about that. Alright, let's see what that's like. Alright, maybe? I don't know. Maybe a little harsh. So I'm going to group that, and then we're going to create a wet dry. We're going to bring that down a little bit and bring. So now this is the dry bass, and this is the distorted bass. So we still got the thickness, and we still got like the overtones. And let's put some sort of effect on the distortion, just because, you know, here we are. So phaser starts with a P, double click, drag. Space, let's go to space. Get the phase out of there. And we can hear that particular effect. Sorry. What is that looping madness? Let's go. There we go. That was much better. So I couldn't hear that before, but once we excited the harmonic overtone series, it really brought out that it was looping kind of weird. Alright, so now it's got a little bit of movement. Unsolo that. Cool. That's pretty hot, I guess. Now, let's make just one more sound. Triangle. Drag that on there. It's at 24, so we're gonna go up to 12. Solo that. I said solo that out. And now we're gonna use an arpeggiator to make awesome sounds. Drag it onto this rack. Oh, awful. It's terrible. But we're gonna keep it in the key of C major. Is that what we want to do? No, let's just have it shift, and then let's add another scale. That way, when we want to control the key of this entire rack, we can just map this to macro 1, map this to macro 1, and now that affects the key of both of our scale plugins. We're thinking ahead, we're looking towards the future. Alright. Now, let's talk about how this works. I want to do a video on the arpeggiator because the arpeggiator is awesome. And I love it, and I love arpeggiators. Okay, so let's go to 0 is what I want. It's just going to go onward, like that. That's some weak sauce. But let's go up one semitone. Holy snap, it's not doing anything because we need to give it some steps. So how many times are we going to go up one? We're only going to go up once. Well, what if we go up twice? It's going to go doot-doot-doot. Is that right? Oh, that's because our scale plugin. See how it's going 1, 2, 3? Well, if we put this up, because this is only semitones, so we're not actually going to hear that. Now, if we were to do whole steps, then it's going to go up to a full step each time. And so now it's creating like you know, a nice little pattern instead of what we would normally hear from an arpeggiator. It's just going, you know. And that's cool, but I really like using the scale effect and doing values of less than 12 because it creates these dissonant tones within the chord. That's a loud motorcycle. You're pretty cool, man. All right. So let's hear what this sounds like with all the jazz going. Pretty bad. We're gonna go up more. All right, so we can hear that, but I just feel like it needs to be louder. Yeah, so that's what it sounds like, but I want to do something crazier. Great. And now we're going to put some effects on that. Definitely auto pan to move that around our heads. So now it's kind of giving the implication that that noise, the arpeggiation, is swirling around. Let's do that. There we go. I like that a lot more. And let's do some sort of modulation. We already used flanger. I'm sorry, we already used phaser. What I want to use now is flanger. Double click and drag. You're a pro by now, you know what's up. So, kind of sounds stupid. I don't know, it's alright. Meh. And let's do simple delay, maybe. Cool. That's nice here. I feel like it's going to be too much feedback once we bring everything in. Nice. Does sound kind of cool. Me gusta. Alright. So at this point, normally what I would do is I would find some things to map. As in, like, to change these sounds so that, I mean, this is a cool sound in and of itself, but it could be so much more. So let's do that. Let's do this. And so I'm going to take all the modulation effects. And we gotta So that's our modulation for all of the instruments. Now that does kind of ruin their relationship of modulation that we had set up before. Like this one is at 100%, but we're just going to sacrifice that. Sounds like that's making it a little bit louder. So if we were really taking the time, we're just gonna deal with that. But you could put a put a rack within a rack. Yo dog, I heard you like racks. And then a utility, and map that to reduce in volume as you turn this up. Or you could do that per channel if you didn't want to put a rack in a rack. And that way we would keep this at a consistent volume and just change the timbre or the timbre as you turn the knob. But we're just gonna leave it. Great, so there's our modulation, and you know what, stupid, let's get that out of here. So now I'm kind of testing some things. Probably this guy will be pretty nasty. So we'll go to 3, Ooh, unbelievable. Okay, so if you right click, you can select where you want to I don't know, I guess it's kind of in there, so it's like a little bit of hiss. That's subtle, but you know, I prefer for these knobs to do big, giant, ugly things, to be honest. Square lead. I guess we could change the... I'm sorry, sometimes I think something and I don't actually say it. But that's changing the rate of the LFO on the filter. Cool. And now, you know what? Let's undo that. If we right click, remove mapping. And now let's do LFO to macro 5. And then we'll do the frequency to macro 6. So now these guys are right next to each other. And we can make them the same color. And we know that they affect the same thing. And then we want to get really crazy. Let's do macro 7. Great. The wave on the LFO for a filter does more than you think. But I love that one because it just creates like a crisp front edge. And that's obviously backwards. Cool, so we can create some decent stuff there. Now, most of the time I don't put volumes on here because we can control those with the chain. So those aren't too far off. Triangle. I guess we should control the rate of the ARP. So let's put that to 116. And then... I guess. Alright, so let's do the gate. Put that to macro 4, and then we'll at least make these the same color. This is some random. Modulate. Modulations are always blue. Hiss. Make that red. That's too much. I'm colorblind. Did you guys know that? Great. Alright, so now we've got our sound, and we've got a couple different options for our sound, so let's get that stuff out of here. I feel like the saw stuff is a little bit too loud, so let's go down 3. In fact, the saw could just open up. Yeah, sure. That was the loudest chair drop I've ever heard. But I'm okay, so nobody panic. And of course we can change the key. So if we want to go to the key of B. Alright, and we can change the key if we want. So let's go program some stuff in here. C, F, G minor. Loop that up. Great, so that's in the key of C, and now if we want to go to the key of B and have all the arpeggiations be correct, let's just go down a half step. Does that sound right? The E? I think so. Sounds a little goofy to me. So let's just double check where actually that's in shift. That's on B. So we should be correct. That's the idea anyway. Well, does anybody create tracks in anything other than C? Let's just say no. Alright, so there it is. Kind of a rambling walkthrough of creating an instrument rack. And we're going to call this something motorcycle. And even though it sounds nothing like a motorcycle, but now we're going to save it under instrument rack. And just drag it up in there. And now you can double click. And there it is. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Hit me on the Twitter. That's about it. JeffyArt.com.